And my pleasure to welcome the program. He is a Albany County Commissioner for the first time, got elected back in November, and has joined re-elected Heber Richardson and Terry Jones, who was elected a few years back on the County Commission. And welcome Pete Gosar to the show. Good morning. How are you today?
I'm well, David. It's nice outside, so it's awful easy to be good today.
I can't blame you there, because it was gorgeous yesterday. I didn't mind the lack of wind and then blowing the forecast for wind, at least here in town. I know it was breezy in some areas, but first couple months sounds like it's been a busy couple months for the Albany County Commissioners.
It is. I think, you know, we were talking a little bit before that the meetings, I didn't expect as many meetings, right? I thought about the first and third Tuesday, excuse me. But we've had a few more than that, but that's all right. The learning curve's pretty steep, but you keep trying.
So you ran, I know you had a couple of big things on your agenda, transparency, a couple other things. How would you say the meetings have gone in these first couple months? What, you know, just from your perspective as new on the commission? Well,
you know, I think, quite honestly, I think the meetings, at least one of them a month, should be at night. There's a reason they roll out the ball at the Arena Auditorium at 7:30 on Thursdays and Wednesdays, and because I don't think there would be that many people on 7:30 a.m. right,
yeah,
for a folk game. So, but we're working on that, and we're trying to codify some of our procedures and processes to make that happen. So I think that's good. There's a appetite, I think, on the commission to live stream the meetings, and so people can check in. So if it ends up being a evening meeting and you're in Rock River or Centennial, the weather's bad, you can just tune in on the internet, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I know that was one of the things that we talked about during your candidacy when you were on the show, was possibly looking at that. You guys sent out a survey. What was kind of the feedback that you got? I mean, is there something where maybe you can go to a night meeting? Because when you're on the first and third Tuesdays, you guys would also conflict with City Council, which I think people would like to get to at the same time sometimes.
Yeah, I think the city, I've had some discussions with some of their members, and they would be amenable to working with us on that. And so, yeah, I do believe that the survey went out and it was split about 50-50. 50% of the people wanted it traditionally like it's been, and then another 50% wanted an evening approach to meetings. And so I think there's something you can do innovatively. I think you could try one at each time during the year, during the month, and see which one's more attended and what people see, what they like.
Were you surprised that it was a 50-50 split?
You know, it wasn't. You know, I suspected there would be more for people at night, but we'll see. You know, we're going to put our procedures and processes out to people for public comment, and we'll see how that goes, and that'll be part of it, right? What do you want the meeting to be? And you know, we serve at the will of the people, so however they do that, and however they want to engage with their commission is what we should do.
Well, obviously, there's been a number of different topics. You mentioned a lot of meetings. What's been a couple of the big topics that people around the county need to be paying attention to that you guys are working on right now, between you and Commissioner Richardson and Commissioner Jones?
Well, I think you know, always this time of year, your mind turns towards budget, and we'll be starting that process in not too short or in short order. But also, we have some wind development that's starting to happen in the northern part of Albany County, and then you know, zoning is always a big issue for us. You know, deciding how and where things need to go and where they might not need to go. You know, sometimes deal with vestiges of the past, you know, and some of the work in Centennial, when the road didn't match up with the railroad, so some of the property boundaries are a little bit interesting there.
Okay.
But you know, it's good, and you learn a lot.
Budget is obviously big. The legislature, how close have you guys been paying attention to the legislature in terms of the impact on your budget and what you're seeing from the state this year?
Well, you know, I try to pay attention, and then I think Terry and Heber do also to what comes out of the legislature, because it really does matter. I think right now we're in pretty decent shape. There was one piece of legislation that was particularly bothersome to me. You know, the private school in Teton County. You know, the county commissioners in Teton County had not allowed that to be talked about. It's my understanding there wasn't a formal process with a private school, but then the private school, you know, appealed to the legislature, and it looks like they're going to override the county commissioners. And for me, we talk about local control a lot in this state, and this is one of those issues where they've gotten it wrong. I really do.
So budget is obviously key. You talked about some of the zoning and things like that. Any big items that people have kind of brought to your folks' attention, whether it's been you or Heber or Terry so far in the first couple of months, that you feel like really you got to kind of maybe do a little more investigation into?
Yeah. I think I'm really excited about our movement towards standardizing how our packets are developed and when the agenda goes out and when the packets are available to the public. I really do think that's important. I think that having our processes out for people in the county to see and to comment on, maybe for the first time in a long time, is important. And I really am excited about the opportunity to live stream and to engage that way.
All right, we're talking with County Commissioner Pete Gosar, first time on the Albany County Commission, as we continue our conversation here on a Wednesday edition of Laramie Live on KOWB. And obviously, a lot on your guys' plate, because obviously your budget time gets to a busy time. You mentioned the wind development kind of in the northern sector of the county. What type of an impact is that on residents out there in the county? What have you heard from landowners, and what type of an economic impact do you see for the county with that?
Well, it's just begun in earnest, but there are going to be some impacts. I think we had 2 new deputies come to the Albany County Sheriff's Department as part of those impact funds, and there'll be more. Right, there'll be more road work that will go on. There's a lot of speculation about the numbers of workers, and it's one of those you kind of wait to see if they materialize. What I'd like to see is also a further discussion. Some of the impacts of roads and deputies are important, but how about impact funds for the county library there at Rock River, or these are things that don't show up right away, but they really do matter if there is going to be a bunch of folks moving in to help with those construction projects.
It sounds like a big, expansive project at the same time. This is not going to be short-term, quick-term. It sounds like this is going to take a little bit.
It's for a couple of years. I think the impact funds are being proposed, at least a couple, and so I think that you never know what to expect, but you should be prepared. And it looks like a lot of our department heads are already well down the planning stages with that, and I really do appreciate their work.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're visiting with Pete Gosar, County Commissioner here in Albany County. Laramie Live on KOWB on this Wednesday. We're going to get a chance to visit with Commissioner Jones coming up in a couple of weeks here on the show. And then we'll kind of get you guys kind of rotating in on a monthly basis, which I greatly appreciate, because I think folks will like a little bit of different perspective from the three of you, kind of, because you all have your own opinions and ideas and perspectives, as we all do.
Right. We're not cookie cutter there for sure.
Yeah.
And that's quite all right. I think that's important. I think having different perspectives is really important to making good decisions. But I think you should always disagree, but not be disagreeable. And hopefully that's something that we'll continue to do at the commission.
What else have you learned here in your first couple months on the job? Is roads a big thing in the county? Because I hear that sometimes and see that via social media with county residents.
Yeah, the roads are a big thing, and ensuring that our emergency services can access subdivision roads is a gigantic thing, and so I think we need to be cognizant of that when we go approving plats and subdivisions to make sure that our firefighters and our EMTs and our sheriff's department can get out there and use those effectively, and that they're not in dangerous conditions to do that. I've been really interested about how much work is done by how few people, and it's pretty tight over at the county, and there's not a lot of extra. When you have one maintenance guy running the entire complex, you can't get much smaller than that. And so looking for ways to help people and not burn them out, I think, is a really important part of being a commissioner.
Yeah, it's one of those where there's been a number of folks, I think, across our community, across the spectrum, just in general, where you've been asked to do more, and that's unfortunately been kind of a sign of the times here recently, Pete.
Yeah, I think it is. I think there are ways to talk to people differently and say, hey, this is what we're doing with this, right? We could do more, but we're going to have to think differently about what we do. And I like to have this conversation, like being with you today, and hopefully having a more ongoing conversation is great. Being on live stream, having night meetings. I've thought about having a once a month coffee where I'll just buy a cup of coffee, you come down and ask me a question. If I can't answer it, which probably is a good idea, I'll write it down, and then I'll go look for somebody who can answer it. But just have a conversation about, hey, this is your county, and we can do a lot of great things here because we're pretty big and pretty long in human capital here.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had a lot of contact with constituents in the county so far in the first couple months on the job?
Yeah, you know, I love the fact that the email is published and the phone number is published, and sometimes if I'm in the middle of a clinic, I try to, won't take the call, but I'll try to get back as soon as possible. I think a few people were surprised that I called them on a Sunday, but you know, that's the job I signed up for, and I aim to try to help where I can, and if I don't have the answer, I'm going to tell you, but then I'm going to go try to look for somebody who does and get back to you.
You mentioned maintenance is one guy kind of running everything. Are there other areas where you see this county stretched a little thinner than you had anticipated?
Yeah, I think up and down the line, right?
Okay.
I think a few years ago there were some budget cuts that really made it lean, and you know, I think it's hard to do more with less, right? And so how do we find a way through grants, or is there some other way that we can get a few more bucks here to maybe add a half position to the maintenance guy, right? Or give somebody else in human resources. These are big jobs, and you certainly want to have good people, but you don't want to burn them out and try to look for new people all the time.
You mentioned adding a little bit ago a couple of deputies with these impact funds from the wind energy. How big is that for this county, considering the size of what the sheriff's department kind of got down to, and now we're adding back to it?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's been a pretty lean staff. Sheriff O'Malley has been talking about it. He was really appreciative of those funds. I mean, I think he finally is moving towards being more of what he would term a full staff.
Okay.
Still not there yet, but so he was down 2 positions, and now I'm moving in the right direction. But you know, there's conversations, and I think, you know, we have to, as a community, find out how important, you know, our county is, and say, you know, is this willing to be funded, and should we fund it differently, or is there other ways to make sure that we get the most from our government? And it's I really like to have that conversation, and I really want to ask people, can you help us improve, right? Do you have an idea that might help the county government? And if you got a good idea, we should be smart enough and flexible enough to take it, implement it, and say thank you, and if we can't do something else, right, get you an Albany County mug or something. I don't know.
I'm picking the brain of Pete Gosar this morning here, Albany County Commissioner on the Board of Commissioners here, just elected. Anything else? Obviously, I think the land purchase has been big for the county commissioners just east of town. Any update on that? Have you guys been talking about that? Is that obviously, I think it's still ongoing and going in the right direction, but is there any major update on that you guys have been provided here recently?
You know, not that I have. You know, it is a big deal. It's a gigantic deal for me, and I wish I could report more about that. I think that'll be coming up in the next month or two. Over timelines being proposed that way. But I think it's an important economic driver, as well as a lifestyle driver here. You know, free space and open space is huge for us, but it also will allow this county to do some really interesting things with bike races and hiking trails, and then it covers part of the aquifer. So it's a real big deal for me, I think, in this county. The
tourism aspect of bringing folks in for what you just kind of mentioned with hiking and the bike races and all kinds of different things. So looking forward to it, seeing how things kind of go along with this land purchase. I know that's been big for the county commissioners, for those folks that are on the Pilot Hill Project Committee. I know I've visited with the committee chair, which happens to be Senator Rothfuss, a couple times about the project. So not that he's not been busy here in the last couple months, or a couple other folks on that committee. Not like any of us are busy or anything. Right. So I can certainly understand that kind of coming back around. As I pick your brain, anything else, anything big coming down the road that county residents need to be aware of that you are talking about, or you know that's coming up on the agenda in the next few meetings here as we get into March and April?
Well, I just would ask that they engage with us when we put our processes out for comment.
Okay.
Right? Be honest and open about what you'd like to see. I think it's important for that. And keep your eye on the Pilot Hill. I think this is really something that needs to be done. It's in my mind, a have to. And so how do we do that? And how do we make it work for everybody? And how do we drive that to the finish line, right? It's so important. And then we have to have discussions. You know, we had a spill down I-80, right? That's where, you know, our aquifer is recharged, and we need to have some conversations about how do we do something better there if there's something to be done. How do we protect that water? It's really important.
Well, and then that actually, you know, brings up an interesting question. You talk about that spill, and we actually had some people that asked us, well, is there a plan in place for something, that could have been worse than what did transpire, because they got that cleaned up pretty quickly, but that would have an impact on the aquifer east of town.
Yeah, we really, I sit on the Environmental Advisory Committee. It's a joint commission with the city and the county. Mm-hmm. And I just went to the first meeting, and I have some amazing people on that commission. I really appreciate their willingness to serve. But and they want to move forward, and I'm with them. I think without water, you don't really have much of a town or a county, and so we need to work on that and put that front and center.
Yeah. With that, I will let you go for right now. Look forward to visiting with you, with Commissioner Jones, with Commissioner Richardson over the next couple of years, but have fun.
Hey, thanks, David. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time and coming on and just kind of catching us up, and sounds like it's been a whirlwind couple of months for you.
Yeah, and if anybody has a question or something they'd like to ferret it out, please give me a call or send me a note. I'll be more than happy to. I appreciate the opportunity. All
you have to do is go to www.co.albany.wi.us. Click on the County Commissioners page, and the contact information for all three county commissioners for the Albany County Board of Commissioners is up on the website. Pete Gosar, thank you so much again.
Hey, thanks, David. I appreciate it.